Welcome back to Kathie's Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Kathie Owen. And today I want to talk about something that's been on my heart lately, the pressure to be perfect, and why the real magic happens when we let that go. You know, I've spent years in environments where perfection was praised, where mistakes were punished, and where image mattered more than impact. And that can even mean on the inside, because really and truly, it happens from the inside out. And you know what? It nearly broke me with all of that perfection being praised and mistakes being punished and image mattering more than impact. But I have to tell you, it also woke me up. There's a weight of perfection, and whether it's in our careers, our relationships, our health journeys, or even in how we show up online as a coach, a consultant, as a speaker, and society tells us we need to have it all together. That's an illusion. And let's be honest, social media doesn't help these days. It's easy to fall into that rabbit hole trap of comparison when we're constantly bombarded with highlight reels of other people's lives. And I remember when I worked at OCuSOFT, I felt like no matter how many wellness events I hosted or how many people I coached and helped, it was never enough. Well, at least not in the eyes of the people who mattered at the time, or the people who signed my 40-hour-a-week paycheck. Looking back on that, that's kind of funny. But that need to be perfect, it actually robbed me of my joy, and it kept me playing small. So again, there's a weight of perfection. Social media is constantly bombarding us with curated image of success and making us compare our real lives to these unrealistic portrayals. This constant comparison can make us feel inadequate and anxious about our own progress. The pressure to achieve perfection in every aspect of life can be overwhelming. It can lead to burnout. It can lead to anxiety and even depression. But like I said, and here is the truth, perfection is an illusion. We all mess up. We all have bad days. And honestly, that's what makes us beautifully human. You know, I used to think that if I just worked harder, if I performed better, or if I proved myself one more time, I'd finally be worthy. But perfectionism didn't lead to progress. I'm going to repeat that because that's kind of important. Perfectionism did not lead to progress. It led to burnout, major anxiety, and major self-doubt. Now, as a coach and someone who's healed through many years of self-reflection and mindset work, I know this. Growth does not happen in the pursuit of flawlessness. It happens when we embrace the mess, when we embrace the storm that's hitting us, that we so-called think is hitting us, because perfection is an illusion. No one is perfect, not even those seemingly flawless individuals we see online or we put up on that pedestal, like I did with the executives at the company I worked for or the HR people that I worked for. Every single one of us make mistakes. We all have flaws and we all experience setbacks. So embracing imperfection doesn't mean throwing in the towel. It's about accepting the reality of being human and understanding that setbacks are part of the learning process. When we strive for perfection, we often avoid taking risks and stepping outside our comfort zone. This fear of failure can hinder our growth and progress. But there's freedom. There is freedom in letting go. And letting go of perfection doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care differently. from a place of trust and authenticity, not fear. When I stopped trying to be perfect, I found peace. I found me. I found myself. That's when people started connecting with my message. And it wasn't because I was polished, but because I was real. I'll never forget the moment someone at Toastmasters told me how my vulnerability helped them step into their power. That's when I knew imperfection is not a flaw. It's a bridge to real connection. So the freedom of letting go means embracing our imperfections because it makes us more relatable and approachable. When we show our vulnerabilities, it allows others to feel comfortable doing the same, fostering deeper connections. Letting go of the need to be perfect opens the door to vulnerability and acceptance. It allows us to be more honest with ourselves and others, creating a space for genuine growth and personal fulfillment. Do you know what happens when we give ourselves permission to be imperfect? We become more creative, more resilient, and more alive. Some of my greatest breakthroughs, both in life and in business, come from moments where things didn't go as planned. You know that saying, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. I think about Rusty, my sweet little dog, and how I almost spiraled when I thought something was wrong with his health. But that moment reminded me how much love and presence we can feel, even in uncertainty. That's the art of letting go, and trust me, it is powerful. So living authentically, what does that mean? Start by practicing kindness toward yourself. When you make mistakes, give yourself permission to learn from them and move on. Celebrate your strengths and acknowledge your weaknesses without judgment, or as my coach says, without shame and condemnation. So celebrate our strengths and acknowledge our weaknesses without shame and condemnation. And set realistic goals. Celebrate small wins and embrace the journey of growth and progress is essential for living authentically. And then finding beauty in the imperfections that make us unique is a powerful act of self-acceptance. It allows us to embrace the whole of ourselves, flaws and all, and live a life filled with authenticity and joy. So how do we begin practicing this? First of all, be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would your best friend. Celebrate your strengths, yes, but also honor your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are your greatest teachers. Never forget that. Set real human goals, not hustle culture goals. And remember, the journey is where the beauty lies. For me, it has been journaling, daily walks with Rusty, and surrounding myself with coaches and community who get it. Like my Toastmasters, new friends that I've made, and just connections that I reach out and do on a regular basis. It's breath work, it's prayer, it's reflection, and yes, sometimes even crying in the car and then laughing 5 minutes later, because that is life and it's beautiful. Here lately, I've been adding journal prompts to my videos, and I'm going to cut and paste these inside the description and the show notes below so you can easily just go get them. But remember, I also write a blog post that includes bonus resources on each episode that I do, and I include a link to that in the show notes and description below. So journal prompt number 1, where in my life am I striving to be perfect? And what would it feel like to release that pressure? Explore this area in work, in relationships, in your appearance, etc., where perfectionism shows up the most for you. Then imagine, what would shift if you allowed yourself to just be enough? What would freedom look like there? And then journal prompt number 2. What parts of myself have I judged in the past? And how can I see those as sources of my strength today? Think about a mistake, a flaw, or a setback that once made you feel less than. Now reframe it. What did you learn from it? How did it shape your resilience, your compassion, or your creativity? And I'm going to share with you right here how I felt like it was a setback when I left OCuSOFT. But I look back in connecting the dots looking backwards. It had to happen that way, or I would still be inside that little box, feeling so-called comfortable and not getting to the bigger picture or stepping outside of that box. Because once I stepped outside of that box, the view up here is so much better than it was in that little bitty tiny box that I thought was the whole universe. So I invite you to contemplate those when you work on these journal prompts and to realize that those so-called setbacks really shape your resilience, they shape your compassion, and they shape even your creativity, and they help you to look at things in a bigger, better way. So remember, you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't have to have it all figured out to inspire someone else. You just have to be you. So today, I invite you to release the pressure, let go of perfection, and step into your truth. Drop a comment below and let me know what's one area where you're giving yourself permission to be imperfect. And if this message resonated with you today, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that little bell, and share this video with someone who needs this reminder today. All right, thank you for being here. You are not alone, and you're more than enough exactly as you are. That's my video for today, and I trust that you found it helpful. And until next time, I will see you next time. Peace out and namaste. Yes, I did the hand gestures. All right, see you next time.